Good morning. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good morning, Tillamook. Thank you once again for having me. This is Stacie Zuercher from Northwest Senior and Disability Services, and I have the pleasure today of talking with Dr. Ben Douglas from Adventist Hospital. Good morning, Ben.
Good morning.
Dr. Douglas.
Glad to be here.
So we're going to talk, you are going to be hosting the Doc Talks this month, which my understanding is that Adventist is now doing a monthly series of education.
That's right.
So the first, this one's going to be Tuesday the 28th, and tell us what you're going to be talking about.
I'll be talking about hospice. I'm the medical director for hospice here in Tillamook, and so we'll be talking about what is hospice and when is it appropriate for you or your loved one.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's an important topic, and it's really neat for people to have the opportunity to get some education. And we all know that there's a really large senior population in Tillamook County
That's right.
Versus other counties, and so education is key. So I'd love to get a sneak peek into what you're going to talk about. So
all right.
Tell me about the history of hospice and why it's important.
Yeah, hospice is something that has evolved actually over centuries. There have been forms of hospice that initially were places where people went at the end of life, and often they were for people with tuberculosis
Mm-hmm.
or cancer, and it has evolved into more of a home-based system now. Mm-hmm. Modern hospice began with a nurse in England named Cicely Saunders, who befriended this refugee who was dying, and she followed him through the dying process and thought, maybe we can do something better to help
Mm-hmm.
people
Wow.
at the end of life. And
That's amazing.
yeah.
Well, and I think that it's true that I think people don't, sometimes do you think they don't want to talk about hospice or, kind of face that is a really important thing that we all deserve to have?
Yeah, and talking about death and end of life is something that culturally in our country has been hard to do. Mm-hmm. We have sort of put it off and not really want to talk about it. But once you start talking about it, and especially with the person that you're taking care of, they're often glad that somebody's talking to me about what's going on and what can we do, and mm-hmm. I'm so glad you came.
There's it's a little bit empowering maybe to just be able to have that open dialogue and say, what can we do to
Absolutely.
Support?
Yeah.
So as far as when is it appropriate to have a conversation about hospice and all those kinds of things?
Well, most of hospice care is provided through Medicare. Mm-hmm. And so we use guidelines from Medicare. And their sort of basic guideline is that if somebody has an illness and we think that their life expectancy is less than 6 months based on the way the illness usually plays out, then that person qualifies for hospice. Mm-hmm. So when somebody comes on to hospice, it's when they're at the point where they've decided they don't want to try any more curative treatment or interventions or surgery, or maybe they've been on chemotherapy or dialysis, and they've decided they're going to just stop their treatment. And then what we do is provide comfort care in a lot of different areas to try to give them the best quality of life that mm-hmm. they can have.
Understand. And a lot of these services can be provided in the home.
Yes.
Right. And I think that it's, in my years of working in my field, working with seniors, I think that there's a common perception that you wait until really your final days,
right,
when you're actively in the process of dying before you start a hospice or talk to your doctor about a referral, or you end up in an emergency room where then they do a hospice referral. So mm-hmm. so it sounds to me like there's some options for people really if they make the decision that it's really about quality of life and comfort in their final months.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then we encourage people and their primary care providers to talk about hospice well in advance. You don't have to be at the very end to start talking about mm-hmm. hospice. Even I've spoken with a number of oncologists or cancer specialists, and they tell me that often as their patients are progressing and it looks like they're not going to be able to do a lot more. Even before they're actually ready to go to hospice, they start talking about what hospice is, and when we get to that point, these are the services that hospice can provide.
And what are those services? Because I know there's a lot of different things that people can get that are really enrich their time with their family and those kinds of things.
Very much. Yeah, and Dame Cicely Saunders, one of her major contributions she gave to what we consider modern hospice care is she developed this concept known as total pain. Instead of just thinking about physical pain that somebody has with a medical condition, she also talked about psychological pain and spiritual pain that people suffer, not only the patients, but their loved ones as well. So hospice tries to address or provide services to try to help with those things. So, of course, there are medical services that we provide. Nurses come to the home and check on patients and help with pain management or other medical problems, medication management. But we also have a social worker who can help with a number of different things, from helping find in-home caregivers, or somebody is at the point where they think they need to move to a different place. They can help with that. Also, helping people do things like you need to decide which funeral home you're going to use. And so those sorts of things our social worker can help with. We also have a chaplain, and often people find that it's very comforting to have someone they can talk to about their spiritual needs as well. And through hospice, our chaplain is basically non-denominational.
Okay.
So our chaplain is there to talk about spiritual needs, but not necessarily to talk about a particular religion. And sometimes people who have no religious connection still benefit from talking with our chaplain.
Well, it's a time to be reflective, I'm sure.
Much. Yeah.
And you also, I understand that the hospice here at our hospital has a volunteer crew of people that can come and provide some support to whomever is on hospice, but also to the family. Is that correct?
Yeah. Our volunteers can spend time visiting with the patient themselves, but also they'll spend time with the caregivers or the family members, and sometimes just having somebody there to talk to is a big comfort.
That's great.
And, we have a volunteer program that we're always happy to have people come and check it out, know, and there's a training process that our volunteers go through. So, you don't just sign up and then we send you out to go knock on a door.
Right.
So, it's a great contribution to be able to have somebody just go out and sit. And
such important work.
Very,
we're going to take just a quick little break. I'm excited to get back to it with Dr. Douglas. Have you been to Rosenberg's lately? What a change has taken place. Not once will you hear caution, watch your step. It is so nice not to hear that anymore. To celebrate, they have Certainty Roofing on sale. It's Certainty Landmark AR Roofing. I always screw these up, just for the record, because it's not... I need to go spend more time at Rosenberg's probably, and then I'll get it. Anyway, this roofing is 15% off their regular price, and that is a great deal. They also have everything you need to put that roof on: nails, felt, and flashings. Now is the time to stop by and really save. These supplies will not last. If you saw them at the Home and Garden Show, you will know that T-Rex Pebble Gray decking is also on sale through May 10th. Well, we have a little old one here, don't we? Anyway, so you can save a little bit extra on your roofing supplies. So if you stop by soon, that's really important. So, and then with the spruce up of the store, they're doing a few things differently. They're now running a flyer all month on items that you can save big on. Located at the front of the store, grab a flyer and start saving. All items will be on sale for the entire month, and some items are special buys. So when they're gone, they're all gone. But most items are on the regular stock items that we are putting on sale just for you. Look around the store for even more unadvertised items on sale, and you never know what you might find at Rosenberg's. And this is my favorite part: build it, plumb it, wire it, paint it. Rosenberg's Builder Supply. So I apologize. It sounds like to Rosenberg sounds like I had an old ad, but I do know from being in there that you can go regularly and see what those sale prices are, and it's such friendly service. And I don't know if you ever have to do little projects at home, Dr. Douglas, but they're the people to go to because they will point you in the right direction.
Absolutely.
So this again is Stacie with Northwest Senior and Disability Services, and I'm here with Dr. Ben Douglas, and we're talking about hospice and why it's important. Yes. So thank you again for being here.
Glad to be here.
So tell me about your role specifically in the hospice program at Adventist Hospital.
Right. Well, I'm the medical director for hospice, so I'm a physician. I also have a family medicine practice, which is a big part of what I do. But as medical director for hospice, I oversee the medical care that is provided to the patients. I review the patient's medical record if they're referred to hospice to see if they meet the criteria and qualify. I don't see every patient who comes onto hospice, but I do go out and do home visits and when they're needed, and periodically check on patients. And so my role is a lot of oversight of what the nurses are doing and reviewing the medical care. I'm on call. If something comes up, the nurses call me. We make adjustments. 24 hours a day, stuff happens. So
Sure. So tell me about the pain management piece of it. I think that's an interesting topic when it comes to hospice.
It is. With hospice, not every patient on hospice has pain issues, but many of our patients do, especially people with cancer.
Sure.
Often pain is a big issue. And one of the things that we worry about with pain management just in general in our culture is addiction to medications.
Sure.
But that's an issue for somebody who has something that may be temporary, and then we're going to take them off the medication. When somebody is on hospice, the addiction part is not really an issue, partly because of their shortened life expectancy, but also because what we're doing is we're treating symptoms.
Right.
And so the people are not abusing the medication. So we have a number of different medications we can use, and in addition to just what we think of as regular pain medications, there are other things that we do to try to make people comfortable. And one of our primary goals in hospice is comfort, to make people comfortable.
And then the other thing that I think a lot of people get confused about, and I hope you can help me understand, and hopefully others will get some use out of it too, is palliative care is the big topic.
Right.
And so the difference between palliative versus hospice and when each are important. I think it's a really interesting kind of new thing that's out there and up and coming, right?
It is, yeah. And there's still, it's something that we're still kind of clarifying.
Sure.
Yeah, I think sort of the simple way to think about it is hospice is for people that we anticipate are at their end of life. Palliative care is for people who are maybe not quite at end of life, but may have similar serious problems, may have cancer that is causing them significant symptoms, but they're still receiving treatment for it. Also, palliative care can be for other severe chronic pain that may not be life-threatening.
Sure. So would you, if you and so the hospice, so hospice is the your Medicare Part A,
right,
or goes through your insurance. But what about palliative care? Is that billed the same way then, or is that's I think what has to be worked out, right?
Right. There's still that's still an issue that's being sorted out
at a legislative level.
And there are some programs in Portland right now. Adventist Health in Portland has a palliative care program that is connected with Medicaid. And so it's sort of a pilot program that patients who are on Medicaid are referred to them for palliative care, and they're working to see how does this work, and how can we expand it out into other communities and maybe with other insurance programs too.
And I understand Oh, excuse me. I understand that a lot of people might start on palliative or ask for a palliative care referral, and then they do qualify for hospice. And it's just starting. What questions do you need to ask when you're approaching your healthcare provider?
Well, yeah, with palliative care, there's sometimes, like I said, it could be somebody who is still receiving treatment for a condition, but they need more symptom control. And hospice is really when you get to the point where you've decided you don't want that interventional treatment. You've had all of the chemotherapy you can have.
Right.
You can't have any more radiation treatments. And so that's sort of the decision-making point.
Yeah. The other thing I think is really interesting about hospice, and for those of you that are listening and don't know, I spent many, many years working in nursing homes and memory care and skilled nursing. And through that process, a lot of times a senior would not be thriving. They'd get that failure to thrive diagnosis and go on hospice. And what was unknown and what I had to learn through the process of being in those environments is a lot of times the hospice team would come together, we'd put together a plan, and over time that person would actually graduate off hospice. So tell us about that just because you get on hospice doesn't mean that there's an inevitable diagnosis, even though there's that 6-month.
Right. We see that not uncommonly. And especially in conditions, for example, several years ago, I had a patient who had heart failure and was not doing well at all. And he was very, advanced in age and went on to hospice. And so, of course, when you go on to hospice, the nurses come out and see you more frequently at home. And, they were able to work with me. We made some adjustments in his medication, looked at a lot of different things. His family was doing a great job taking care of him. And his heart failure got better. And he got better. And so he graduated from hospice and did well for probably close to 2 years before he came back on to hospice again later on. But it's not unusual for a lot of conditions that when people come on to hospice in the first few months, often they get better. But that doesn't mean, you have to leave hospice. We just kind of expect that.
And I understand you are constantly, as you're evaluating to make sure that the person has the right criteria for it.
Right.
Yeah. So that way we can pay close attention. And
That's right.
And I love that. It's, I would often, as a social worker in those environments, do hospice referrals, even if I didn't know for sure. We'd talk as a clinical team and go, let's just have a hospice team come in and evaluate the person. And maybe there wasn't something that they needed right that moment, but maybe within the following year, they ended up going on hospice and more than one case. That's the beauty of it. Yeah. Everyone can, kind of have that wraparound service.
Right.
And it is a benefit that everybody gets. And that's, I think, a little bit unknown, too, is that it's that one thing that, every human, deserves.
Absolutely, yeah. And we talk a lot about Medicare and hospice, but we do have patients on hospice who don't have Medicare. There's Medicaid benefit, but then also a number of private insurances have a hospice benefit as well.
Oh, okay.
And most hospices, including ours, if somebody has no insurance, then we'll still take care of them. We'll figure out what to do.
Sure. Well, I appreciate that because it's all about doing the right thing.
Yeah.
So we're going to take another quick break. This is Stacie with Northwest Senior and Disability Services, and I'm here with Dr. Douglas from the hospital. So preventing heart disease can be done at the dinner table this summer. Tillamook Regional Medical Center recommends eating a minimum of 5 servings of fresh fruits and vegetables each day. They're rich in essential vitamins, nutrients, and fiber that keep our bodies healthy by lowering blood pressure, fighting inflammation, and keeping our arteries clean. A nutritious diet can also prevent weight gain and diabetes, which are linked to heart disease. Summer fruits, berries, and vegetables from local growers will be at the farmers markets, making it easy to shop for healthy foods like blueberries, strawberries, and leafy greens, including spinach, kale, and chard. They're good sources of vitamin A, C, and K. And taking care of your heart is a year-round job that starts with eating nutritiously, exercising regularly, reducing stress, and getting high-quality sleep each night, which also prevents heart disease. For these healthy tips, visit northwestregionalheart.com. Those are good tips.
I love that.
Yeah. We were talking before we started the interview here about all the great programs that the hospital is providing to the community. And this is just a little added bonus. And there's a sleep lab there now, too, somebody was telling me.
That's right. Yeah, we have a sleep lab.
Every time I turn around, there's something new. I love it.
Yeah, we're trying to keep the community healthy.
Yeah. So let's talk about the actual Doc Talks and that program. So if you're just tuning in, I'm here with Dr. Douglas, and he is going to be speaking on Tuesday the 28th for the hospital's monthly Doc Talks. So what are Doc Talks?
Yeah, Doc Talks are a new program that the hospital is doing, where different members of our medical staff are talking about doing community presentations to talk about different topics. I think the most recent one was about smoking cessation. I'm giving a talk this month about hospice, and looking at the schedule. We have a variety of things coming up. Shirley Arneson, who's a nurse practitioner, is going to be talking about how to prepare for mom and dad getting older, which is a big topic that we see over and over again. Dr. LaFleur, who is our orthopedist, is talking about arthritis. We have Dr. Paul Welch, who is one of our OBGYN doctors, is talking about ovarian cancer, cervical cancer, HPV. We have a talk with Nikki Kuhl with early breast cancer detection. Dr. John Bowman is going to be talking about diabetes in November. So we have a series of health topics that we hope community members will be interested in and can come and join in the conversation.
Yeah, well, and I love that community education piece, and it's because prevention's a really big part of the process.
Absolutely.
And from what I understand, you have there's not a meal that is served, but there's light snacks. There's activities if you have children and want to bring your kids so that you can get the information you need. But they have a little area that, from what Jenny Gables shared with me, where they can, do an activity or color or, just have some things so that way that doesn't prevent someone from getting great information.
Right. And the talks are at the Tillamook County Library.
Okay. So Tuesday the 28th, 6 to 7 at the library. Be there or be square, right?
Yes, there you go.
So back to our talk about hospice. I think we've covered a lot of really good information. Let's see here. Boy, I've covered it, haven't I?
Oh, I've talked about a lot.
Yeah.
There's, some of the questions that come up with people about hospice is some people think that once they come onto hospice, they just get one shot at it. And if they go off hospice, that they can't come back. But that's not the case.
Okay.
The way hospice is set up is when you come on to hospice, if you get better and you graduate, as we call it, if there comes a point later on where you need to come back on, you can come back on. So it's not like you just get it once.
Right.
And the other thing is that when you go on to hospice, you don't lose your other Medicare benefits.
Okay.
So hospice through Medicare provides more things than just straight Medicare does. Hospice will provide things like hospital beds and other medical supplies in the home. We have a home health nurse aide who can come out and help with hygiene and bathing. So there are services that hospice can provide that people often are not aware of.
And again, the goal is always comfort.
Exactly.
So it's supporting the family, it's supporting the person that's receiving the services, and I think it's great that you have those, the equipment and the bathing, and those things can be, especially for someone that has never walked down that path.
Yes.
Very, very challenging to try and navigate. So.
Yeah, and a big part of what we do is to provide support and education to let people know what might happen. What happens when somebody goes through this process?
Right.
What are we going to experience? Because it's unknown your first time through it.
Yeah.
For family members and loved ones especially, it can be very challenging.
And the social workers, I think that most hospice, or the hospice here will provide some extra social work ongoing.
Yes.
So.
We also have what's called a bereavement program. So after a person dies, we don't just disappear.
Sure.
We still have bereavement services so that we can stay in contact with family members and loved ones and help them through that time after the person is gone as well.
Yeah. There's the hospital also, you can call the main switchboard number to get information about the grief support group.
Yes.
That is run there too, and that's another wonderful service that the hospital does. So, I think that it's really phenomenal, and it's a great conversation to be having with families and people. So the last thing I was curious about, so if you as the medical director, so do you become the physician that follows that person when the person goes on hospice?
I oversee the hospice part of it. Sometimes I do become that person's primary care provider, especially if they're from out of the area. But when somebody goes on to hospice, they can still keep their primary doctor, their primary care provider doesn't have to go away. They can still be part of the care team.
Well, that's great because, some people, especially in a smaller community, they've had the same physician for the last umpteen years, and so...
You want to stay connected.
And you used language just now that I really loved, which was care team.
Yes.
And really, that's the goal as Comfort, is just really bringing together all the resources that you can to provide some support for families that are going through that journey.
Yes, we are very much a team.
Yeah.
We get together every 2 weeks. Everybody involved in care meets, and we talk about every patient who's on service.
Wow. And then is there anything like that happens for the person on hospice too, as far as like where the care team meets with the individual, or is that kind of the social worker, nurse?
Yeah, people go out to the home, the nurse, the social worker, the chaplain, the home health aide, volunteers. Often people find it overwhelming if too many people come out at the same time.
Oh, okay.
But we are available, and sometimes patients and families prefer that people come out 2 or 3 at a time and consolidate their visits.
Do some, that makes sense too.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you just make it about the individual.
That's what it's
about. What a concept.
Imagine that. Yeah. We're there for the person.
Yeah, I love it. So I have a couple little announcements here. This Saturday is Kids Day at the Tillamook Farmers Market. Kids will be issued Kid Bucks to spend at the market on fresh and local produce. And the program empowers kids to make healthy food decisions and have the opportunity to speak with the farmer who grows the food. Bring the kids to the Tillamook Farmers Market this Saturday from 9 to 2. And then also the senior meals will take place at noon every weekday at the Kiwanda Community Center in PC. The cost is $3 for seniors and $6.75 for everyone else. Senior meals at 11:30 are at St. Mary's by the Sea in Rockaway every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Tonight is the Cork and Brew Tour, which begins at 4:30 at the Pelican Tap Room. Sample wine, beer, along with food, and Cloverdale will be playing as entertainment. The country music band, they're
awesome.
Fantastic. Very cool. Tickets online are at corkandbrew.com or at the Pelican Tap Room and Sunflower Flats. Tonight at 7 and tomorrow at 2, the Oregon Coast Dance Center is holding their 41st annual yearly recital, end-of-year recital, dancing through Candyland. At Tillamook High School, admission is canned food for the Oregon Food Bank. And tomorrow, Yappy Days. That sounds like cute. Yappy Days, a fundraiser for the Tillamook Animal Shelter, is in PC from 10 to 4. Live music, children's activities, puppy petties, splash pools, dog popsicles, silent auctions and raffles, and that's going to be a funny time. Hope you'll bring your pooches. Tonight at the Manzanita Farmers Market, you can go there from 5 to 8 to pick up your fresh foods and vegetables and all those wonderful artisan goods. Tomorrow, the Tillamook Farmers Market is, again, it's Kids Day from 9 to 2. And the Nesco Wind Farmers Market's from 9 to 1 on Saturday, and the PC Pacific City Farmers Market is from 10 to 2 on Sunday. So, as usual, there is so much going on in Tillamook. I love it.
We live in a wonderful place.
We really do. Thank you so much, Dr. Douglas, for being here and taking the time to help us understand hospice and that process. And I really, really appreciate all the work that you do.
Thank you very much. It was my pleasure.
Be well, Tillamook.